Welcome everybody to this town hall. My name's John Best, and this town hall is brought to you by CUNA Councils. If you haven't checked out CUNA, especially, as I said last week, I've run into a few new people in the industry, and man, there is no better way to get to meet folks than to join these councils, especially peers in the industry who are, are established at other credit unions, and it's very valuable. Mike, I know you've been to a lot of their meetings and whatnot.
Yeah, the CUNA Lending Council is going on right now, and they have some really good content. I was on it almost most of the day yesterday, and they had some stuff today as well. And I think it ends tomorrow. But yeah, it's been some really good content. I'm really blown away by the content. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've really stepped up to these virtual meetings. So really excited for that. And Member Pass, which is also heating up. I'm hoping to get Zach on from Forefront.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, I know you talked to him as well.
He was a really good interview.
I want to do some updates on that based on COVID and some other things that I've been looking into from a government perspective.
Yeah, I also talked with Jim Yates from First Educational, I believe.
Out of Wyoming, he's probably on.
Yeah. So yeah, he was good too. So got two good interviews with them.
It's really good stuff. I think we're finally seeing that pick up, and it's good timing. And we're going to talk about that because I think there's more to it coming around.
Okay, cool.
Obviously big, and we're excited because we're now offering our Fast 5. So of our 5 product, which is our voice product. We now have the Fast 5 product, which is a little different. So here's the way it works. On the current 5 product, let's say your XYZ credit union, you would say, Alexa, tell me my XYZ credit union balance,
right?
Checking balance, and it would tell you. So the problem with that is that it's expensive to get your own name in Alexa in terms of certification time and all the other things.
Right.
And the follow-up to that is that it also, the folks there, there's Zach. The folks there, it takes a while to get through everything, and then you're sort of, fighting for that. So what we've done is we've created the Credit Union Voice Assistant. And so the Credit Union Voice Assistant is an already established invocation or skill, and we could do it for far, far cheaper. So your members would say, ask the Credit Union Voice Assistant what my checking account balance is, and it would go to your credit union and it would come back and say, my XYZ, your XYZ credit union checking account balance is this. So you still know which credit union you're with, you're getting all the same information. But now we can get you up and running in up to 45 days. We charge significantly less. It's just a quick install, somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000, and then just a monthly fee, which is below $2,000. So
right on.
Depending on your scale. So we still believe voice is really important. We're finding out right now with a lot of the ADA stuff going on that it's going to be even more important as we move forward. So we're excited about the new product, and I think
everything is, with everything being touchless and contactless as well, voice is, man, that's percolated to the top for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's now being implemented in cars and vehicles pretty thoroughly, and you're seeing it elsewhere. We're also going to see some new technology around computer vision and that sort of stuff. So we'll get there.
Okay.
And then there's this CU broadcast company that who my good friend Mike.
Who are they?
Yeah, that we've been working together for a long, long time. And when I first decided to do this, I said, Mike, would you help me? And he said, absolutely. And he's been with me. So.
I think we were doing mobile banking back in the 1800s, John. So
yes, we were. Yeah, back then it was just 2 rocks, and you had to throw them at each other. And then you write a note on it, and you each throw the rock at each other.
Throw
and you pick up it. You read the rock, and then you write your response and throw it back at them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it works. Let's move on to the next slide here. I'm sure it's a picture of me and Mike, and we'll skip it because we've been yakking. Everybody, I think here knows the town hall format. We're actually going to be expanding the town hall here. We've been working with a couple different groups. We figured out our emails were having some issues, and so Mike, we're going to be working with you to really put the word out for invites on this, and
sure.
then also. We're working with CU2O, which we're going to have Kirk on. Kirk Drake,
good.
To talk about some of the changes that are happening in the internet space around email, and so it'll be good to go through that.
Right on.
So let's move on. I think everybody knows the chat features. We'll skip past that. Oops, I'm just gonna switch over here. So the 2 topics I wanted to discuss today. the first one is PPP, and this is going to be an all play. I've been recently working with, back with Alpha Rank. I've also been talking to several credit unions, as well as our own PPP loan. I wanted to just find out from folks who did PPP loans, how it's going with the forgiveness and the reconciliation. And so I know that a few people on here, I'm not sure, Zach, did you guys do any of the PPP loans?
Yeah, we did. We did a fair amount, nothing super large. I think we only have a couple loans now that we've learned are going to need to do, provide a lot of documentation. Some are just the application. I know we've really struggled in we have a lot of members who have a lot of anxiety over when is this going to happen and when do I need to do this, and not being able to give them information and be like, just be patient. We know nothing, but it'll be okay. Like and we're starting to get a little more clarification, which is good. And we're just trying to communicate as much as we can to the members who are going to need to do this, kind of what that process is. And we've started to now help guide them through the application process for the forgiveness. So.
Yeah, Zach, I don't think you were on the call when we showed the PPP solution from Alpha Rank, but it's basically just a website that walks them through it. And it reaches into their, most of these guys, the smaller businesses do accounting on QuickBooks or something like that. And similar to invoice loans these days, that'll reach into those and validate it. It does something similar. But the thing that's fascinating to me, and you hit the nail on the head, and I want to hear from other folks, is this idea that we just don't know. And it is a source of anxiety. I wanted to see, maybe I'll throw it at Gary. Gary, do you know if Unitas did a whole lot of those loans, or if any?
Yeah, we didn't do very many of those loans, and I haven't spoken with our business lending group recently to find out if we've done any more, and if what the answers are to the questions about the payback and the forgiveness and all that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fascinated because literally there's millions out there that have to be reconciled, and just wondering how that all plays out. Let me throw it at Kevin. Right, Kevin, what have you? I'm quite sure you guys did a bunch, if I remember right. Maybe I think you did.
Yeah, so we did about 900 total. About 800 of them are all below the threshold, so it's the 2-pager. So we just wrote some code, quickly filled out all of the applications for them with all the fields that we had all the data for, sent them all off via DocuSign to all those business members and said, if you want this to be forgiven, it's in your best interest to fill this out. And they quickly signed it. The ones who had the larger ones, many of them have been realistically trying to contact us since, July and August, saying, hey, we really want to get this off our books. We suggested most of them wait until there was further clarification. We had 2 that didn't want to wait. They were in situations where they wanted to sell their business and they needed to get it all off. And so we worked with them to fill out the paperwork. I can say one of them that we turned in to the SBA back at the end of July. Literally last week, we got an update on it asking for additional documentation with check stubs or payroll reports and everything else that we had to supply. So they've been very backed up from the SBA standpoint. And then the remaining ones that are over right now, our stance has been, look, because of the SBA moving out that deadline, we've written code to push out the due dates on all of those loans. And so we ran that through the system to buy them some additional time, and we're just waiting to see the next wave to see if it goes up to the 150,000. And the ones that are over 150,000, we've talked to them about just going ahead and getting started on filling out the appropriate paperwork so that they can get it done. So it hasn't been too terrible. And the vast majority of the ones that we sent the DocuSign form, where again we pretty much had everything filled out based on the details we knew from the loan, that's been pretty fast. And then in terms of fraud, we experienced more fraud with people who received loans not from us, but were trying to put the funds into our credit union versus members who were actually applying from us. And part of that is because we actually did underwrite all those loans, where there's plenty of financial institutions who weren't actually underwriting anything. They just took the app and approved it. So
Interesting. So I have so many questions around that, which is awesome. So let me start off with and I'll throw this at Kevin Sarber because I'm not sure, but Kevin, should they not forgive X amount of the loan, then that becomes on the books for the credit union, but not totally, right? You're not on the hook for the whole thing.
Yeah, it's just the net amount. The total loans minus the forgiveness is the remaining.
And then that would become, but does it have a fixed rate? Or do they get to determine that?
You know,
no, it's the fixed rate.
Yeah,
It's the fixed rate that what they agreed to at the beginning, the 1%.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a fixed rate on the 1%, but for the forgiveness side of it, let's say that for the bigger, one of these loans, they forgive the whole thing, then that's also income for the credit union because they did the work of servicing it. So presumably when that loan is forgiven, then Addition will get funds in as income based on the interest, right?
So you got an origination fee,
Right.
and then you got that little bit of interest, and that interest was accruing from the time that the loan was written. So the SBA pays you on all of that. So once they approve the forgiveness, they'll go ahead and transfer over the funds to pay off that loan, and then it comes off your books. And you're recognizing the paltry profit at that time. And I say paltry because all of us, at least for us, right, you needed tools in order to help make this work. And so, we partnered with a company that Jack Henry partnered with, who then ultimately gave another section to help do the submissions faster, which was really back-ended by MX software. And, so we had to pay them a portion as well. And so when it's all said and done, it's not really about, there wasn't a whole lot left from a profit standpoint. It's about the relationship that hopefully we're able to leverage because we gave that. And to be frank, there are some of those loans that did blossom into a true relationship where we had businesses who brought us, their deposit accounts, or at least brought us something. And some of them took out other loans with us because when other banks weren't willing to even look at them, we were able to get it done for them.
That's awesome. I mean, I hadn't thought there was a huge amount of profit. I was more getting to the mechanics of it, but it's a good point you make that there are so many, there was other things that had to be done. So it's paltry is probably the right word for that. The relationship was the more important part. That combined with, I believe that on some of the studies we saw, the average loan size was somewhere between 60 and 100,000. So it wasn't giant loans that went out, and that was just brought up by some of the bigger credit unions. So,
when it started, we figured out, I think when I did the math, I was like, we need to write 29 million in loans before we make $1 million.
And $29 million loans would have gotten you there, but that'd be pretty risky.
Well,
And they, at that time that we were doing it, we also didn't know all of the risk that was going to potentially be involved, right? It was a shot in the dark. Like, what does forgiveness mean? We thought, well, forgiveness could mean something like they can pay this over 30 years. They could mean that, that the credit union has to. We just didn't know because the SBA wasn't really forthright on it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Zach.
I was just going to say the relationship win here is that long play, right? Like there was a reputation. I think right before the pandemic hit, a lot of this stuff started going down is when banks surpassed credit unions for satisfaction ratings, right? For the first time in a long time. And then PPP comes out and the banks just, once again, just can't get out of their own way. And I think that really helped us long-term. And so while the PPP by itself may be something that's going to be a struggle, I think it really did help cement some long-term relationships and boost a reputation for credit unions again about when stuff gets tough, that's what we're here for. And so I'm really hoping that we see that play out as well.
I think You guys hit right in the head. Now, I've always known that our purposes were going to be altruistic. I'm just interested in, let's say that, July they come back and they ask for that. So then afterwards, does Addition have to re-underwrite that? Well, I guess, do they have the right? Well, it goes for the terms in the beginning. So does he just keep the loan in that same loan? Kevin, have you thought about that? Are you going to keep the loan in that same account? Or are you going to write a new one, or?
So, because remember, most of them are being 100% forgiven. So obviously those ones we don't have to worry about. The larger ones, if the people believed that they wouldn't get the vast majority of it underwritten or forgiven, then they could choose to instead open another loan to give them a longer period of time, but it would be at a normal interest rate. In which case, most of them have zero interest in doing that because the interest rates on these were so low for them that they're better off trying to pay it off if they can. So we really haven't run into anyone who's like, yeah, I'm not getting enough of this forgiven, so I'd like to refinance it over different terms. So far, pretty much everyone that we've submitted, as far as we know, is going to be forgiven. Again, we did a lot of underwriting on these ahead, and we were pretty conservative. So even the larger ones, at the time that we wrote it, they had all of the details to be able to get it approved. So we didn't think there would be a problem. The people who are running into problems are the businesses who didn't disclose that they also went out and got a CARES Act loan, and then they're finding out, oops, I can't get all of this forgiven because I got a CARES Act loan. And then some of them are using those funds, and the ones who wasted that, I'm sure that they're going to have a conversation about pulling out a new loan and refinancing that essentially.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was getting. I mean, I think that's the long tail I was kind of thinking about, was what's this look like? And I think you guys obviously did this right, but I know a lot of credit unions who took a different approach and did a lot of these. And so one thing I thought was fascinating, and I'm sure others will want to hear this, but I'm gonna guess at what you did, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I'm assuming that when you say you filled out everything for them, these were businesses that had a commercial account with you. And so as a result, you had all the detail and access to that detail that you needed to be able to fill out the forms for them and then push that through. Or is it that you were able to use the MX rails that were previously in place to get the information and then have them fill out the forms?
So you remember, as soon as they got a loan from us, they had to have an account. So we opened, they had to open an account. We had all those details. That 2-page form is very simplistic. It's basically just asking for, the business owner's information, which obviously we had, and then some of the details on the loan. And then they have to sign it as an affidavit that, yep, these funds were used the way that are all listed here. And then that's it. I mean, that's all there is to that short form. The larger form, that one, we provide the details when they need it. We're not filling out that form for them. There's a lot more detail that's needed. They have to provide a lot of the payroll pieces. There's a lot of documents that are going to be attached and a lot of calculations that they have to do with those. So those are more of a one-off, and if they need help, we're happy to help them. Some are turning to their accountants and having their accountants fill them out. But yeah, the short form, like I said, it's 90% of it can be filled out by us, and then with the DocuSign, we send it over. They just essentially sign the form, and then we submit it.
That sounds like something everybody needs to do for their groups. So hopefully other people will pick up on that, because I think you're right. The vast majority of them are going to fall into that category for most people. And so I think you're way ahead of the game pulling that out. Yeah, the reason I was looking into it, and so this kind of leads to the next portion of this I wanted to talk about, which is, and I'm excited that Zach and Jim are here. So Jim Yates, because I want to chat about this a bit. But so it looks likely, at least at this moment, that Biden may win. But regardless of who wins, based on what we're seeing in the coronavirus world, which has sort of been pushed by the wayside, although it's been hitting record numbers, obviously everybody at the polls and everything else is going to push that higher. I'm guessing there may be another lockdown. I just feel like, there's a good enough chance that may happen. And so my thought was, okay, what do we do different this time? What does that look like the next time around? I mean, it's obviously easier in some ways because we kind of know what we're doing, but could it be the nail in the coffin for some branches? Could it be that, like, Zach and Jim, this is where I think your investment in MemberPass may pay off heavily, being forced back to that, model of a lot more people having to authenticate them over the phone and taking that time. We're also starting to see that some cracks in the foundation of what we did. We're learning that call center, we've spoke to several Canadians who've said the call center service levels have gone down because we've separated them, and they were kind of a brain trust, and a lot of questions and things they would answer would come from the hive of the call center, and without being nearby them, they don't necessarily have the hive mentality to handle that sort of thing. So, my thought is that if it is that we were to, and I'm watching other countries who are now going back through this, including some pretty well-established groups that had done pretty well, including Germany, for example, locking back down, which gives me the sense that there's possibility through the rest of fall or winter here that's an option for us. So the discussion I wanted to have is, okay, let's say next week, and like, for example, in El Paso County here, they're talking about that. So it's obviously going to be another state by state. Of course, there is a chance that, by January, specifically 20th, we may even have more rules if this continues, if it can't be brought into check. So I don't know. I'm going to pick on Zach because he's here and I like his green background. And I've been trying to catch up with you for some time, so I'm excited you're here. I hope that we can chat afterwards too. But
Absolutely.
I wanted to follow up and say, so you guys, how many branches do you have, Zach? Remind me.
15.
15. So, and do you still have the same 15 post lockdown? Nothing's changed?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And they're all open again. And give
Yeah,
everybody a little background on Forefront, because Forefront's really cool.
Yeah, we reopened our lobbies on May 27th.
Okay. And you guys are, you're located in a couple different counties. Where
yeah, we're in Traverse City, Michigan, right? So we have 15 branches. We kind of run the northwest corner for the most part, but we have a little bit more of the Lower Peninsula too. So we span, I think, 250, 300 miles ish from our southernmost branch to our northernmost branch. But our largest concentrations are in Traverse City, Petoskey, and Charlevoix. So we're kind of, that heat maps up in that top corner. But once we reopened our lobbies on May 27th, our lobby traffic resumed almost 100% to normal. Now, part of that is that we live in a very, while Traverse City itself has a ton of Chicago transplants and a lot of city transplants, once you get out of the city proper, it's a very rural, very conservative area. And so there's been a lot of people who just, we didn't have a lot of COVID exposure. We're starting to see that spike up now. Like some of the other rural areas where it just took a little longer to get here, but now it's kind of getting here. So there was I think a false sense of security. So our members, once we opened our branches back up, just basically came in just like they always did before. And so, when we've attended different roundtables, webinars, like we're not shutting branches down. We haven't seen anything where it's like, we did have some spikes in certain digital channels, but for the most part, we don't see a reason to really change our strategy or what we've been doing from a branch standpoint. Now, if we have to close lobbies again, we'll be more intelligent this time through than we were the first time, where we really had to scramble. And I think we have a playbook to really make that work now and leverage. We've officially installed ITMs now to replace all of our pneumatic tubes, so we don't have any manned drive-throughs through our 15 branches. Everything is in our call center in Traverse City, supporting all of those branches. So.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was getting to. Well, first of all, congratulations on keeping the Canadians out. I'm not sure how you do that, but I'm sure that they're just showing up and then messing up your coin machines with their weird Canadian money. Um,
Uh-huh.
I work a lot with the Canadian credit unions, so I should probably be quiet. But you just said something very important, which was we're going to be smarter about it this time. So, for example, this is kind of what I was hoping to get out of this meeting for everyone is what are the lessons learned from this time, and if we're going to do it again, then what won't we do and what will we do different? So, can you elaborate on that? We'll be smarter about it. Like, for instance, I'll give you a thought that a lot of people repurpose their branch people as call center people,
Yep.
which I thought was not a bad idea. But then they also found out that the two aren't synonymous. Just because you can help members across the counter doesn't mean you'll be good at it on the phone. That said, I also think people kind of figured out some best practices around that. So that's an example. Is there something you do different there? Or, those are the kinds of things I'm looking for because I'm guessing there's some group intel here that may be valuable for everyone on the lessons learned.
Yeah, so what we did is we did leverage our branch staff to be call center and digital service reps, which is our video tellers who support that.
ITMs, okay.
And so we had to learn how to be super flexible in getting alternate workstations set up across our 15 branches with webcams, be able to support that and train those individuals on how to do that. And so we reacted fast, and I'm impressed with how well we did, considering the fact that we didn't really have a playbook to how to make this work. If we do it again, like we already have workstations that we left set up, knowing that we may need to actually leverage them again. We have a knowledge management system called Panviva that we use that has, contact center dashboards, MSR dashboards. So depending upon which role that you have the rules of how to engage a member, how to communicate. There's scripting involved in that. So we just activate those new dashboards to those people when they're going. So they have that knowledge base at their fingertips. And then we have, we leverage Skype for support and kind of questions and everything as far as that goes. So I think we're just more confident, we'd be more comfortable, we would move quicker and really be able to leverage that talent faster than trying to figure out, does it make sense? How do we do it? How do we train them? How do we get that skill there? We've gone through it once and we have a lot of the same players in place still. Obviously, it's only been a few months. So I think we'd be quicker, more deliberate and know what to expect.
So just to throw some extenuating circumstances at you, there's a worry that schools will become a vector again. And if they do, if they shut down again, that was an impact on a lot of staff for Cranians that were out there having to deal with families who suddenly had to put into place or deal with homeschooling and those sorts of things. And that's still going on to some extent, but not at the level it could be.
Right. Yeah, and so with that, we have a pile of laptops waiting in the IT area, just waiting to deploy, kind of one off, and we've updated a lot of people to laptops in certain departments. So our whole payments team is now, they got laptops last week. Our contact center management crew is getting laptops right now. We're getting everybody to be more prepared to be mobile in case those things happen, and we've built in kind of fluctuating expectations depending upon what's happening, right? Back in March and April, if a kid's running around in the background on a Zoom call, like that's fine. Today, that's less appropriate for right now, but if school is shut down again, we understand, you know what, hey, you're gonna do what you can, you're gonna commit what you can. If you can give us 75%, we'd rather have that than have you laid off.
Yeah.
So I think we're comfortable to kind of make that pivot. And we're fortunate in certain ways that we have enough of a talent base that doesn't have school age children that we can kind of flex as much as we need to, I think, with that as well. And so I guess while that causes a little bit of a challenge for us, it's not anyone that would lay away a branch or a department. We have like a one person here or two people there who might have kids that we'd have to kind of accommodate for. So.
Gotcha. Well, and so my takeaways from that, and I'm going to throw it over, I let Kevin Wright rest for a minute, but I'm going to bug him again. My takeaways were, buy laptops now, because I think you're on the right track there, because we saw that as a very diminishing thing. I will tell you that I could make a good case that you should just get all of your employees PlayStation 5s, and I'm pretty sure I can run what we need to run on them. If you need help, send them to me. I'll adjust and send them back.
All right.
But but I use the PlayStation 5 thing because I do believe that over Christmas, given what we've seen, a laptop is going to be a more valuable gift than previously known, because people are in need of them and have realized, okay, this isn't a casual thing for me anymore. I now have to have something a little more functional, like my phone.
Mhm.
The other takeaway I got from that was that you've assessed your staff in terms of risk around the schools being closed and those sorts of things. And so those seem like really good things to do ahead of time now, rather than let it catch you again. Because I think we'll make it through November. I'm hoping we do, but I mean, it could be the Burks and those kinds of people are not not giving us good news in the sense of what we're seeing there. So let's those are good takeaways, and I'm going to include those in when we because usually Glenn and I will go over this and use some of it for a podcast. Kevin, from your perspective, Kevin Wright, if you're still here, and I think he is, what maybe he isn't. I'm not seeing him. Kevin, you still here? He may have had to jump off. He's a very busy dude. I'll switch over and ask Jim. So Jim, I know you, Jim Yates. I know, and by the way, Zach, I wanted to before I go on from you, tell me how MemberPass, not to my sponsor, but just because I think it's important, how MemberPass will help in that situation, or how do you guys see it helping? And is it already helping?
Yeah, I mean, we are still really early, and we're less than a month, and we're into week 3 at this point. So adoption has been it started off a little bit slow, but we're really hitting that flywheel and starting to see some real spikes as we're really more focused and giving good feedback and really training our teams up. But one of the the hugest impacts that we had from everything shutting down was, we had a 300 to 400% increase in calls. We had a 600% increase in chat. If we can shave all that time off, the average, not conservative, but the average, authentication time with our standard authentication process is greater than 1 minute.
Yeah.
Can authenticate somebody in 10 seconds. Like, I'm saving probably 50 plus seconds. Now, when I communicate it outside of that, I'm more conservative and say, 45 seconds. Sure. The average member, if they know everything and I ask them the right questions, they've got the answers 45 seconds, but it usually runs a minute plus. When I can shave that kind of time off of 40 to 60,000 calls a month, right, it keeps those service levels where people feel that they can get that support that they want, and your team gets less burnout with seeing that queue backed up. So that's where MemberPass is going to be a win on both sides. It's going to help things go better for the member, and it's going to keep that burnout potential down. Especially call center people understand what that burnout feels like. Your non-call center folks in your lobbies are much more susceptible to just be like, I just need a day off. I can't. And they just start calling in,
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, what you just said is pretty fascinating. If you just say use your minute number, that's 40 to 50,000 minutes a month that you get back, which translates into how many FTEs, Kevin? Barber? I'm gonna make him do the math. He's Captain Call Center. He could probably calculate Erlang C in his head.
No, I'd have to work at that one a little bit.
Now think about it a little bit. Tell me by the end of the call, and then it'll be like guessing the number of marbles in a jar. If you win, we'll get you something new. So Jim, you're also working in the MemberPass space, and let's talk about Wyoming for a minute. So first of all, something really cool in Wyoming. Did you see the announcement from Caitlin Long with, is it Aventia, the bank that's nearby that won the Bitcoin crypto stuff through the government? I'm actually going to be talking to her. I'm interested in what she's going to do with that. But I still think there's opportunities for Craig. And so that's a whole different, I'm going to have a different episode on that, but it's pretty fascinating. It just happened. But you've just, let's start with, you've got such a small group. It's not as big of a deal for you, but still another round of closing if it were to happen. And we're starting to see from what I saw, and again, I happen to live nearby, we're watching North Dakota South Dakota sort of bleed into Wyoming right now from, I'm guessing, Sturgis passing through or whatever. So what were your lessons learned and what will you pick up again?
We've been in Laramie County, which is where we are, we've been fortunate that, we've had a spike in cases, but it's not been quite as bad as it has been in other parts of the state.
Sure.
But they did implement their first mask mandate. So that is probably a step towards what may happen. The schools are talking about closing again. They're preparing students and parents for that possibility. We've had our lobby open since June 1st and have been pretty much operating as normal as you can since then. People have just walked in, people that make appointments, but we're not requiring them. But we have seen a decline in lobby traffic. But if we have to close again, there's some things we learned. First of all, we'll have more of the hardware in place in people's homes. When we closed before, we were relying on their devices to, VPN into our office. But we have a few laptops on order, so hopefully that'll be taken care of before anything happens. But we see member pass as a way, not over on the phone, but also in the drive-through if we have to do something there where you may not be able to see somebody as well. They're in the back. And then also for some higher risk remote transactions like wire transfers, those are the members that we're contacting now are the ones that do those sorts of transactions, but generally come into our office to do them so that we can get them up on member pass so that they'll be able to continue to do those sorts of transactions if we do close our lobby without them having to come in, or if they're in quarantine, they'd still be able to do those transactions using the member pass app.
Yeah. Now, Laramie's where UY is, University of Wyoming is, isn't it? If I remember right.
Right, but Cheyenne is in Laramie County and Laramie is in Albany County.
Oh, that's right. I got it. Okay. I
So,
remember where you are. Yeah.
right.
Because I was thinking that it feels like member pass, and I throw this at Zach, and by Zach, I want to come back. He just spawned an idea for me. I want to ask in a minute, but that the university would be a great place to propagate that. Because they're dealing with sort of a lot of things. But it's interesting because you are a school seg. At least you started off that way.
Right.
It's a lot of connections. I know a lot of your board is former school board members and whatnot. So you have a very good insight, and it's interesting to hear that they're already thinking about closing the schools down, especially there because they're usually pretty. That it takes a lot to push them in that direction. Now you do have, like I said, some bigger things going on.
Right.
It's been sort of hitting that area pretty hard, but it's interesting to hear that. It's a little insight I hadn't thought of. I knew that University of Wyoming, because I've got friends there, was looking at that and had already told some of the students not to come back, and they had gone to the quarter time, halftime piece. But no, I'm fascinated by that. So you just said something. Do you have ITMs, Jim?
We don't.
You don't.
But we're looking into it.
Okay. Well, that's smart. So Zach, do you use member pass on the ITMs?
Oh, absolutely. For us, that's one of the biggest wins. The enrollment process through there we thought would be a little bit challenging too. But so what we found, a couple of challenges that we have with the ITM for authenticating people is, number one, not every vehicle is at the same height of the camera.
Oh yeah, that's my biggest
You can
problem.
pull up, put their ID out, we still can't see them. So we're like, hey, can you look down or can you get out of your vehicle?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you just want to answer questions? So then we go to our, almost our call center verification at that point.
Oh God.
Authenticate.
Get out of the car and
So-
do the TikTok dance, and if you can do that, then you can get your balance.
Yep, exactly. So we've started to see some really good adoption and enrollment numbers through, the ITMs as well. And for us, that's a quick channel, but 15 branches. The one thing that's weird on the ITMs is I've got 15 branches. I've got ITMs in every one of those branches. I've got 35, total machines in that fleet. You could pull up to one of our branches that nobody's there and maybe have to wait 3 to 4 minutes for somebody to come to you because we're serving all the other branches that might be busy, right? And so you want to move that as quick as you can. And so 2.5 minutes average transaction time If I can shave 30 seconds off of that, now I'm down to 2 minutes. I'm moving people even faster. And so we see that
It's a whole different thing when you're in your car.
Oh.
You know, but what I'm fascinated by is, one, it seems like there's some capability of showing the phone, like with QR codes. So one of the things I've been looking into, I don't know if you saw Venmo pushed out their cards that have QR codes on them now. And most people, interestingly enough, this is another thing I'll talk about, but they're going to portrait cards.
Yeah.
All the big players are going to portrait cards. So, and I think I know why, because I think you're seeing a lot more of this.
Yep.
And so portrait cards keep your logo up here on the other side of the chip, which
we're rolling contactless out first quarter. We'll have everything launching for having our contactless shipped, and we're looking at a card redesign with that and going to a portrait mode on them.
So is the by the way, here's my thing. Print a QR code somewhere on there, even if you don't know what you're going to do with it yet. It can always just be connected to a URL. Just connect it to a URL and leave it on there. You can do something with it in the future.
Okay.
But coming back around to what you just said, which I thought was fascinating, is this idea that you're reestablishing your cards. Now, was that in the works before COVID, or is that something you're doing now? And did you change or not change your contactless approach?
So we've been watching contactless. We have a ton of projects going all the time. So we were looking at contactless and like, hey, I talked with our card vendor pre-COVID and said, what is your backlog looking like on contactless? Because I don't want to sit on it too long and find out now I got a 2-year waiting list to start getting in here. And they're like, oh no, it's not bad. We're looking at 3 to 6 months. Once we get you signed, you can have everything kind of rolled out. Once March hit and things started to shut down, I reached out and I said, put me in the queue now, because I'm not waiting to kind of find out. So it did speed up a little bit, us throwing our hat in the ring. We were looking at doing it at some point in 2021. But now we're that project, as much as it was supposed to go really fast. And again, we had about a 6-month wait to kick off our project. It'll kick off in December. We'll be able to be mailed cards in March, but we won't be able to print them in a branch until about 6 to 8 weeks after that. So we're going to be into summer before we actually hand a contactless card out through our, and we're not doing a mass reissue because it's just 50,000 cards. Just doing a whole mass reissue is kind of, especially in the current environment of just adding.
Oh, no, it'll be a big mess, because you've got, there'll be a whole lot, and then you'll just overwhelm your call center. Anytime you do a mass reissue, no matter what you do, there's a percentage of these guys that call.
Contactless cards crack me up in the fact that I'm investing heavily in an obsolete technology to teach people how to use a mobile wallet.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. We were talking about that, a friend of mine and I, he did the wallet for FIO and also the wallet for Shopify. And we were chatting about that just a little while ago over LinkedIn. Back to Jim. So Jim, by the way, you look very comfortable in your house. I'm envying you right now. It's just, you look like you're in a good spot. I should get myself a more relaxing place to be. But Jim, from your perspective, if they pull the trigger on this, which it sounds like you think is likely, what from your, have you warned your staff? Is there any communication that you feel like, and that you're going to put out? Have you been sort of sharing the school? You have a small staff, so it's not it's not hard for you to do. But how are you communicating, culture-wise, this to staff?
We actually had a fairly long discussion about it at our management meeting yesterday, because one of the out-of-state credit unions that has a couple of branches here now, they closed their lobbies, and one of the branches is closed entirely, so they're drive-through only now. So we were talking about that, and then what we learned from the school, and we had everybody test their remote access. It's just those kind of cues that people get an idea that things may be changing. We've talked to the people that have kids, what sort of arrangements they can make. Some of them have a spouse, some of them don't. Some the spouses have critical positions where they can't be gone. So we're just having conversations with people and seeing if something happens, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen. Even if they close the schools, we don't know what
Yeah,
that's going to look like.
Yeah, no idea.
So we're just, telling people to be prepared and that we'll work with their schedule, that sort of thing. That's
I really like your idea of this pretest. And, Zach, that seems like something that would be valuable for everybody is, to think about for people that are set up, rather than wait for that day to happen, to do it in waves and say, take a department and go, hey, we're just going to test everybody in this situation, for a day or something, so that we can figure out what's wrong now when we're not under the heat of an extra, as you pointed out, 30% of calls. Jim, I think that's a fantastic idea for everyone to establish this. It's kind of like the emergency response system.
right.
The TV did that the other day, scared the crap out of me. I just don't watch TV much, and I was actually watching it, and it went, burp, I thought, oh my God. But yeah, I think that's probably a rehearsal is probably a really good idea. In particular, too, if you're pushing out new equipment, that rehearsal is probably really valuable from that perspective, because I think that the folks that work their way through this long term, I read an article. It was called like the Dance of the Hammers. I don't know if you've read this. It's a guy he's a famous, some sort of virologist or something, and he called it the hammer and the dance or something. And basically the thing is that you go outside till it rains hammers, and then you go back in, and it's going to be, that was the metaphor. And it appears that's kind of what we're going to be doing, is locking down, coming back until everybody gets vaccinated. And so it feels like preparation is a really good idea, but more importantly too, the training of it, because we just don't want to find this stuff. Put it this way, I think people were really tolerant the first time around because of the situation. Not so sure staff and members are going to be as tolerant if we know it's coming on the second time around. It's the fool me, foolery once, fool you, fool everybody twice, whatever it is that you say. I think they're going to be less tolerant about that, about what we do on that time around, because they're going to be like, hey, we got it the first time, but come on, you should be, should have been ready for this on the second time. And frankly, most of us are supposed to have pandemic response. I don't think anybody declared a disaster, which is interesting, which means we don't really need the pandemic response thing, I guess. But I know that in our table games and for when Kevin and I ran things, we had to have an entire pandemic response as part of our business resumption plan. So and disaster recovery. So it feels like that I wonder if there'll be, if you don't have some plans and aren't being somewhat proactive, and things start to fall apart, I could see where there may be some auditing or something that would sort of go, hey, come on, you should have known this on the second time around. Well, we're getting close to the end here. We got about 10 more minutes, but those were all really good takeaways. I just kind of wanted to think about that a little bit, given I knew it'd be a smaller turnout because it's election day, but in my head, the election kind of brings a couple things. One, I asked the PPP question because I'm pretty sure we're going to see another round of it. I think here shortly, we're going to see us giving out more PPP, and that the first round isn't sort of done yet. I thought it was a valid question to sort of, before we threw more wood on that fire, to know what we were going to do and find out best practices. And I'm really thankful for Kevin showing up and sharing that. He always does incredible stuff, and Zach and everyone else that shared. I think the follow-up to that is that there will be more opportunity for the bigger ones, and we should probably be ready operationally for those loans that are not going to get forgiven, and what that's going to look like on your books. Because remember, CECL's already is been changed and in place now too. And I'm not sure everybody's taken into account loss provisions around that, because so many of them, as was pointed out by Kevin, were in that smaller sort of ultimately forgiven. If you can fog a mirror, you're forgiven. But there are some middle-sized ones. and whether or not those need to be moved into a separate loan for servicing or what that looks like. So those were some of the pieces that I had already kind of gone down that road a little bit, but I wanted to think about it a bit more. Really like this idea of automating all of that for the folks, because it seems like a pretty simple process, automating that for all the people that did get them, where for the under sort of automatically forgiven, I thought that was pretty valuable. And then moving on to this idea that there's a possible closure ahead, and sort of getting ready for that now, particularly if we go into sort of a lame duck sort of season. We may see some things escalate that haven't been escalated in past. We're also seeing, like I said, I think just the fact that where Jim is getting to this point. Wyoming would almost have to be, it reminds me like, if you pass through Laramie and on to, past that into, what's that, Chestnut or Waternut, what's the next town down the road? I forget the name of it, but it looks like the town from Tremors. If you ever watched that old movie, like pretty sure those worms live there. And, I stopped there in that little town and nobody was wearing a mask, and this was in April when I was headed up to South Dakota for a stay up there. And so, and it was just something they weren't doing. And for them to get to this point means it's real. And for them to consider closing the schools in Wyoming is sort of a barometer to me of the rest of the country, because if they're there, then other people got it. Other school zones and other places have to be talking about this. And so I'll wind this up with the couple things that I thought that I really liked out of this was preparedness. If you don't have those laptops, you should get them now. The idea that something like MemberPass is super valuable because that may be a good answer for when you overwhelm the call centers again, because that is going to happen if we close. Reassessing the provisions you have in place for folks who may have to educate their kids, and assessing that risk in your population and your staff is really super valuable. And I really like Jim's idea of sort of having hey, let's test this. And not all at once, let's just send, hey, let's take this department, send this branch, don't close it, but, test the water, make sure you can get it through the pipes. No different than we do a disaster recovery test. And now we come to the most important part of this. This is the part where we go back to Kevin Sarber, who has been diligently working on how many FTEs we will save by shaving off 40 to 50,000 minutes a month. Talk to me. I've seen you looking down, and I know that look because I've worked with you for 20 years. You're writing and doing math. That's what I think you were doing. If he had a whiteboard, he would do that. But what do you got, Kevin?
I could, somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 a month in savings.
Wow. That's a lot. Hey, Jim, how many calls do you get a month?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Not that many.
With your size, I would guess like 5,000 or so. That sound about right?
About right, yeah.
So, yeah, so for you, that would be a quarter of that other number or less than a quarter. So for you, still be like $2,000-3,000 a month. That's still significant for you. I mean, it's in perspective, or that's in relation to Zach. But Zach, did you guys calculate those numbers? Or I see you writing, so I'm assuming.
Yep.
Now, does that mean
No, we absolutely did. That was a big part of the ROI piece. Like, it's member satisfaction, it's ease, it's security, but that when it becomes, that's why we're pushing to get to scale, right? Because until we get to scale, you don't see those kind of wins. But
that's a big one, because
well, and we so often don't have the justification for an information technology product or project, and it's nice that this one has some payback, because it's a little bit easier to argue to add it.
yeah.
And for us, the real thing is the member satisfaction. I mean, the dollars are nice, but it's the member satisfaction, because 30 seconds to somebody on the phone is 5 minutes for somebody standing there.
Absolutely.
No, it's great. And on top of that, again, you don't usually get to get better security with less friction. And so when you can do these things too, that's just an absolute win.
Yep.
I love it. Well, and I like, I hadn't thought about the ITMs, but it's really channel agnostic. I mean, and it's nice because that solves a problem we had across all channels. Trying to implement MFA in mobile was different than implementing it on the web, and it was going to be different in voice. And
I think that's why we need QR codes in the MemberPass app to be able to scan at the teller counter, right?
Yeah.
Just scan it, because the push back and forth isn't a whole lot more convenient than showing my ID.
Yeah, it's about the same. That's
Just kind of scan that.
That's what I was trying to say with the ITMs. I was like, oh, there could be sort of a tactile space, but you're exactly right. I have a GTI, and in Colorado Springs, apparently I should buy some sort of truck because like all ATMs that I drive through are about here on me.
Yeah.
It's so, and to be fair, the GTI is kind of like riding around in a shopping cart. Well, a shopping cart would even be higher, but it's, I did see one credit union, I think it was Ent, they have an ATM and it has a arrow thingy on it and you can raise it up and down.
Oh,
Now, they probably need to turn it off because I really enjoy it. I'm
you
sure
just
I
start
will.
playing around with it.
Yeah, sometimes I just drive through to make it go up and down because I just think it's cool. But it does. The whole thing raises up and the whole thing goes down and it's on a thing. And so the other problem here, and I'm sure Jim has this problem, is Jim, you need to help invent something to block the wind in Colorado and Wyoming on the drive-through, because I've seen 2 or 3 people lose like 50 20s to the wind. Like it was, they're making it rain for, the call it the Chipotle next door. I mean, they fly. We get wind here. Hurricanes in Florida aren't as bad as the wind I get on a daily basis, here in Colorado Springs. So that's another big one. So we're going to do a whole episode on the wind. I'm probably going to go around and do some filming, I imagine. And then finally, how do you keep the Canadians away, which will be one we will work on with Zach. So how to keep the Canadians and their funny money out of your ATMs, because I'm sure they're just jamming it in there, all the time, because you got to be right up on that border.
Oh, actually, we're on the other side.
Yeah, so you could throw a rock. Well, you were in Canada to some extent, so. Oh no, you're on the other side. So you're
No,
down.
on the other side of the state, on the west side of the state. So
Oh, I thought you were over the top of. Okay, I was thinking you were
Nope.
right on that border.
no, yeah. I got that a lot down in Flint, Detroit area for sure, like because you're right across from there. But no, here we're far enough away, it doesn't matter. But people will shove the most random stuff inside those cash receptors in the ITM. They've got stapled bills, they've got paper
We
clips,
should do a whole episode.
put
of
their
that.
IDs in there.
Hundreds. Everybody could. Everybody has a story about that. There's always something. In fact, Kevin's about 50% of Kevin's stories are about our boss at the time, who would do the most ridiculous things. He was running a Boy Scout camp and he would jam like, I don't know, 10 million checks in there and cookies, whatever he had. Well, listen, guys, Mike, you got any final words there? Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
that's great. Yeah, I'm just this was a really informative episode, and yeah, just the benefits of a digital ID like MemberPass really coming to fruition in times like this, and how you enjoy playing with ATMs that go up and down. So it's been a
I should go video that, like that one time we did the video, the Starbucks
Go around.
drive-through. Yeah, maybe I'll go by there and do that. It's an ITM, so what I like to do is get them on there and then raise them up and down. Just 'cause it's got to be moving their camera, which
It's like, Marge, the guy in the GTI is back again. Can you call security? So
Well, I also have a giant truck, so between the two, I'm either over the top of them or I'm way low. So, no. Well, listen, thank you all for joining. And Zach, if you've got a minute, if there's any chance I could give you a quick buzz, or I'll send you my cell and chat if you don't mind. Just give me a
Absolutely.
call. Kevin, good job. I'm proud of you for coming up with. If you didn't make that number up, I'm proud of you for another FP.
Always have to be ready.
Yeah, you never know what I might call on you for.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks everyone.
thanks,
Have a
guys.
great-
That was fun.
Yep. We'll talk soon.
Here.
Bye.